what's led us to this moment, again, is everything from Brexit to, again, this new neo-fascist movement that we're living in, to a kind of a conservative policy that constantly threatens the lives of people. We're tired of living in a police state.
I refused to see him die. I did not look at the newspapers in bodegas. I did not look at the news feed on Facebook or even text from friends. At a restaurant, a TV showed a white cop kneeling on a black man's neck, and I left before my food arrived. The video of Officer Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd ripped the scab off of our blackness. Inside, where color connects us, pain throbbed. We just buried our grandparents and friends who died from COVID-19. We just lost our jobs. Maybe the worst was over. I mean, damn, can we catch a break? But no. When I left the bodega, I saw a circle of my neighbors staring at their cell phones, faces twisted in horror. Did you see how they did that, brother? One said. I can't breathe. That's what he said. I can't breathe. Fuck the police. I saw open pain in their eyes, and beneath the mask of street machismo was a deep underground cavern where life's bitterness had pooled. And Floyd's death was a lit match falling in.
I think it's always been the time. I think it's been the time before now to protest. I think that now is the time for the world, actually, to become a participant in this protest, because I think that we're living in a fascist state. People's lives are threatened right now with a virus that disproportionately threatens the lives of African American people. I think that we are participating in a certain way right now because the economy is what it is, and 40 million people are unemployed, and there's an outrage. It's an accumulative rage that happens.
What I've seen over the years, from Sean Bell to Trayvon Martin to Eric Gardner to George Floyd, is that the movement has become increasingly large, very multiracial, and I think that's what's given us a hope, is that we're not alone anymore. That now we actually have, not only it's multi-city, but it's really multinational. Is the reason it's catching on like a wildfire. It's like fire only catches if there's fuel. So there is an underlying pool of discontent, of rage, of frustration that people have been feeling and really been hiding inside their bodies. Like their bodies are like these sponges filled with gasoline. And that gasoline is all of that shame and fear that happens when you're constantly either being surveilled, stopped and frisked. Broken windows policing is basically almost like factory farming people into the criminal justice system. And so all of that has been bottled up in so many people's bodies all across the world. That fuel is really what's causing the explosion.
Attention, quick march, so much. Left turn, right turn, about turn, double up, salute, open your hat, stand it is, no fall in, fall out, fall down. No
I understand that for dramatic change to happen, I mean, riots and all that stuff have been part of any dramatic change in Western society since forever, since Rome, since Egypt, Like, it's been how society changes. That, along with, discourse and along with all the other elements. So I know that it's a part of it, but it's the reasons that can sway it this way or that. The reasons that things pop off. Is it through actual social anger? Is it through some instigating third-party initiative? So I ran up to the front of the groups and I started watching. A white girl on a megaphone, and she obviously was not down with the movement, and she obviously wasn't from New York. And she was just like using the catchphrases BLM, getting the crowd amped, and then she would instigate them to destroy property. And then there was white cats dressed up fully cloaked, and they would have hammers and bust down the windows of stores that we would pass. All the black kids were young kids, Generation Z. They were all being manipulated by these people that were definitely in cahoots with each other, because they would discuss and like plan and everything. These white cats that were either anarchists or masquerading as anarchists. The person on the bullhorn would amp everybody up, and then the person with the hammer would go and just initiate the looting or the break-ins with the hammer, just busting down windows, almost indiscriminately.
You tell me my people are free, but that's a lie I've learned to live with. The last time I checked, strangers who share a darker complexion are still overwhelmingly being segregated when it comes to overpopulated prisons, outdated textbooks, over police ghettos. And that was the first time I was called a nigger. And I've never felt so much rage in my life. And words don't usually get to me, but maybe transgenerational trauma is real.
There was almost just like a swell in the collective unconscious, I would say, that has gathered everybody into focusing collectively on this thing, as of 2 weeks ago or so, and almost with continuous momentum up to this point. The whole experience for me has been transformative because I have always located my activism exclusively in my art. Something about this just felt like it is definitely the time to do this in the same spirit of enough is enough, and also like some sort of deep, collective unconscious tug on the heart and mind that made it feel important to be present, which I think, so many people are feeling.
Mama, can't you see? Mama, can't you see? What the system's done to me? What the system's done to me? They keep on shooting us down. They keep on shooting us down. No, you can't hold us to the ground. You can't hold us to the ground.
I was born in Bed-Stuy. I consider this my neighborhood, my community. I'm very protective of it. So when I found out there was a protest going on in Bed-Stuy, I was like, who is putting this together? Bed-Stuy is being violently gentrified, violently colonized. So I just wanted to know, who was doing this and what made them decide to do it here. Found out it was December 12th movement, which is a long-standing Black-led community organization. They're the OGs, and they've been actually doing marches and protests every week before all of this. They were doing protests and marches and, stand-ins way before George Floyd, way before all of this. And that gave me the confidence to know that I could be involved with this specific action and feel, secure, that it wasn't going to be no messy stuff. I feel like when it comes to engaging in action, you want to know who's organizing it. You want to know what the purpose is. You want to know what the end goal is, what route people are taking. I wonder if people are getting that type of security training that is required to be in a space with thousands of people resisting, pushing back against systematic violence. It's sometimes met with violence. Sometimes people just need to be prepared for that.
Be safe, be healthy, be strong, and be revolutionary.
Free ourselves from mental slavery. Never falling for false security. I wanna see I wanna grow further. Open my eyes and fight the good fight.
There's an old saying that to a hammer, every problem, looks like a nail. It's about how police were incentivized through the drug war to continue really hammering down on low-level drug offenses and then, stuffing state and then also eventually federal prisons with low-level nonviolent drug offenders. And some of the other forms of policing that actually were helpful to the community were not as prioritized or not as funded as, locking up low-level drug dealers or drug users. Good actually now to see that a giant wave is actually shaking the very foundations of the police and criminal justice system. And I hope that the wave is big enough now that we can really defund the police and dismantle some departments and really start replacing it with something that's more effective.
I'm totally down for defund the police. And I'm almost completely down with dismantle. All this is an evolution of the slave catchers. And you add that in with, you know, this subjective reality that everybody in different groups in America operate under, and you have a totalitarian system. You have this 1984 dystopic system that people don't realize that we're living in. You know?
You refuse, I think, to allow a Hitler, Mussolini moment again in the world. I think that's why this moment is really important. Just to speak to the Black Lives Matter movement, we've certainly been outraged for a very long time and have seen over and over and over and over and over and over again the unnecessary deaths of too many Black and brown bodies at the hands of police.
A lot of people talking about defund the police, but what they really mean by defund the police. So tell me why the people want to defund the police. Why? Cause they take your money. Defund, what's that mean? If they don't know where their funds are, who's gonna protect us once defunded? That's the fun part. Allocate what would be spent to process arrests for education, housing, healthcare, and the rest. In New York City's budget for 2019, they spent $6 billion on the NYPD. Take it down to $5 billion, make them leave a bill behind. That's still more than several other major agencies combined.
I went to the protest in Foley Square. You know, we'd been chanting like, whose streets are streets? But we're all getting out of the street. And then I had this like moment of lucidity where I sort of realized what the meaning of civil disobedience is, that to make a point, the point is to break the law. The point is to say, no, the law proceeds from the collective will of the people, or it ought to. It is our right to be here to make this point, you know. A handful of us sort of joined arms in spite of the fact that, you know, there was these automated messages coming from the NYPD's amplifier that if you stay in the street, you'll be arrested, and we got arrested, and then off we went. All of my pushing and moving has been from the comfort of me in my recording booth. You know what I mean? Like it's been different, and like something clicked, I guess, in that moment. My personal experience came at no physical harm to myself and little mental harm to myself as well. I was treated respectfully. However, it was easy to witness while going through it that not everybody had received the same treatment that day, and that things were rapidly changing. Some people had been roughed up. Some people had a much more tumultuous experience of being arrested. And even, you know, some of the people that I met who were arrested around the same time as me, who appeared to have been treated much less courteously. It's about generating anthems, content, emotional responses to all of these issues from every corner and from every color and from every type of person, because the more people participate in that, the more progress we make.
Yeah, we really want to amplify Black voices and messages that are anti-racist and support anti-racist policies, and educate our followers on how to do that as well.
Make sure that you know what you're doing. And what you're doing is that this guy will not play with you no more.
That's so beautiful.
No more
Thank you.
killing Black people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This has to be a prolonged protest. This has to be on some South Africa apartheid level. I'm scared that once this COVID lockdown stops, that people will get distracted, not have the time. I really hope that people remember all of this, like the police brutality, the reasons that we're in this, that this stuff is ongoing, that we can actually bring about core fundamental change.
Ogene, they took away the drum. They took away the drum. So I use my voice to resurrect the bones that rest alone at the bottom of the sea. I'll use me.